he's been quite fantastic. In spite of all the problems, he's kept to his line and has contributed significantly to shaping the course of the...
Having said that, and when the president is around, you don't talk for too long, so I'm about to cut what I'm about to say. I just like to say simply that reparation is not about monetary compensation for the wrongs done to us. Because no amount of money can pay for the evil deeds of the capitalist states and their allies. No amount of money can pay for it. You see, comrades, there was a beautiful African woman. I'm not so sure what language I should use around here. But a very beautiful African woman with a very impressive backside. When the colonialists came and saw this woman, they decided that this woman should be put on exhibition. So they captured her, they took her to Europe, and took her from country to country, exhibiting her like a monkey in the zoo. What amount of money can pay for this? A couple of days ago, I circulated some material on WhatsApp to my friends about another woman from Elmina, Edina, in Ghana, in the central region of Ghana, who had some skin problem. And she decided to apply African herbs and ointments. She was arrested by the colonialists, sent to Europe for trial for sorcery. Now, those of you who are a bit older will remember that in Accra, not too long ago, the Rich Hospital, which is now the Greater Accra Hospital, was a whites-only hospital. Only whites. Blacks were not allowed in the Rich Hospital. You understand? I've also come upon material which tells the story of why the slavers, the slave masters and their agents and so on, thought that the best leather bag you could use was one made with black skin. Black human skin. They used it to make leather. The same way you use the hide of cows and so on to make leather. What compensation can pay for this? And then many more. But you see, somehow, all of us, or many of us, have become victims of colonialism without even recognizing that we are victims. We think it's enlightenment because we don't know the history. Part of the history is that the Pope, the Pope of the Catholic Church, in 1452, issued what was then known as the Papal Bull, which was a law. The Pope made laws and authorized King Alfonso of Portugal to come to our part of the world and civilize us. And civilize us meant then convert us to Christianity. And that those who refuse to be converted should be killed. Their property should be seized and their wives should be seized. This was the Pope. So we cannot be discussing reparation, we cannot be discussing our history and so on without reference to the Papal Bull, which was the legal document which declared our lands as vacant lands. We were not humans. The same way you go to look for a plot of land somewhere in Ashanti and there are squirrels on the land, there are antelopes on the land and so on, but it is vacant land. Our lands were vacant because we were not considered human enough. And then it continued. But you see, one of the things that pains me most is that today when you talk to some of our people, and sometimes they are very highly educated, they have been to Harvard, they've been to Oxford, they've been to all of those, and you talk to them, and they look you in the face and they tell you that colonialism is past and gone. We are 60 years old. Why do you blame the colonialists? I feel pity for such educated fools, Mr. President, if you'd excuse my language. Because they're certainly educated, but they don't know their history, and they are foolish in the extreme. You know why? Because colonialism continues up till today. It has not stopped. What explains our poverty? What explains our underdevelopment? Today, look around all of Africa. Look at our railway lines. Just look at our railway lines. And it tells the story. All of our railway lines start from areas of concentration of wealth, where you have your gold, diamonds, magazine, timber, and so on. Where do they end up? All of them end up in the ports. And if that system does not change, colonialism has not come to an end. Today, all over Africa, unfortunately, including the Republic of Ghana, today, we are hosting U.S. military facilities, U.S. forward operating base for the U.S. Army. What is wrong with us? This must change if we are to get real meaning to our independence. You go to French-speaking Africa, all of them, except recently when the Sahel states came up, they put their foreign reserves in the Central Bank of France. So they borrow their own money from the Central Bank of France and pay interest on their own money that they have borrowed. That is the tragedy. Those of you who travel across borders in Africa, and I do a little bit of traveling, I travel across Ghana-Togo border. And we're on the border, and Lieutenant Colonel Bebrolate should know he's on the border. He comes from Lekwe, and I've walked across the border with him a couple of times, and so on. You go to the Ghana-Togo border, there is one house. The bedroom is in Ghana, the bathroom is in Togo. How come? Because when the colonialists were dividing our countries, they didn't care about who was whose cousin, who was whose uncle, and so on. They wanted their spheres of influence so that they could steal our resources. So they didn't care. So we've come up with this absurdity, which we fight over, which we try to defend, and so on. It simply doesn't make sense. But finally, you see, one of the reasons why we are here, immersed in poverty, immersed in these horrible conditions, is simply the fact that we are taking our prescriptions from the people who poisoned us. There's poison in our system. We want to get rid of the poison, but we go to the people who poisoned us in the first place, give us prescriptions. So you go and they tell you that if you are to get out of poverty and underdevelopment, you have to follow the example of Britain. You have to follow the example of France. You have to follow the example of Germany, and so on. My brothers and sisters, I stand here and I tell you that if you follow those examples, it will lead you to your doom. And there's no salvation at the end of the road. And why do I say this? Ask yourself how those countries came to be what they are today. All of them, without exception, came to be what they are today because they captured our forebears and made them work for them as beasts of labor, beasts of burden, for hundreds of years without them. The accumulation which led to the development of the capitalist system came from classical colonialism. That accumulation came from today's neocolonialism. So if you are to follow the example of this, tell me which country in the world, you and Ghanaians today, can also go and capture their people as slaves He worked for us for hundreds of years without pay. It doesn't make sense. Tell me which country in the world you can also go and colonize. Tell me which country in the world will come and put their foreign reserves in the Bank of Ghana and take loans from us, and then we charge them interest on their own money. It is not possible. The path of capitalist development is not a path which is available to us. And it's important for us to realize that the only path to development available to us is the path of collective self-reliance guided by the principles of socialism as Kwame Nkrumah taught us. There is no alternative to that. As you all know, and this is not new, this is not science, this is not new, Einstein told us something. Einstein told us that if you do the same thing repeatedly and you expect a different outcome, your salary. So if you go to the IMF 18 times and still your economy is in this state and you want to go to the IMF, please call the psychiatrist. There's a problem here. There is a serious problem here. Look, this is the final one. Mr. President, please, this is the final one. You see, reparation is about resetting the world. Reparation is about the redistribution of surplus value. Reparation is about reorganizing this world. Because the way this world is structured, the way this world is organized, is weighted.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click on the bell for more updates.